Hello, today I'm with Vicki Jones. Vicki is a professional stills photographer who has also shot and produced documentaries and has recently shot her first independent feature film. Welcome, Vicki.
Thank you very much.
It's lovely to have you here.
It's lovely to be here.
Vicki, I'd like to start with how you got into photography in the first place.
Okay. Well, I was studying out at Footscray Institute of Technology. I was studying a business course, but I took on an elective which was about media, photo media, and I learnt to process my own black and white negatives. And I learned, remember audio-visual presentations when you had music and two slide projectors and you had to coordinate the whole production? I just learned about the power of making images and that I could make my own images. And I finished my business course, but then I immediately went and started a diploma of photography. Should have taken 3 years, it probably took me a bit longer. I did that part-time while working, but then it started me on a whole new career path.
And what was it about the visual image that excited you?
I think being a photographer gave me room to be who I wanted to be in my life. It seemed to not just be a specific track in life, but be able to give me room to grow and do things I wanted to do and change, and gave me more room to find out who I was, I think, in my own life.
Which is, I guess, a nice way of describing the artistic life.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That it is about finding ways to grow and change and to be yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I think I worked at the City of Melbourne for a while, so I know what it was like to work in an office before I then went out and started freelancing. And I felt like I was more authentically myself while being engaged with people as a photographer, taking photos, working with people. I just enjoyed that more. It was more on a personal basis. Like in a big organisation, I felt like I was a little cog in a big machine, and I had a purpose, and I loved it. But I just knew it wasn't going to fulfil me for a long time. So luckily, I started my own business. Those business skills came in handy later. When I was 30 and I started freelancing as a photographer.
How did that happen? How did you make the decision to go out freelancing?
Well, luckily I was in the right seat at the right time. The City of Melbourne was downsizing and I was in a seat that they were going to, I got a voluntary departure package. But also I went and did some more personal training, and I had an opportunity to spend a weekend in a course where you could really look at what you wanted to do with your life. I'd never experienced anything like that before, so it was a really powerful experience. And you could look at what stopped you in life, what were you scared of, where you were, it just got me focused on, I think, leading a more authentic life. And that was through photography.
Wow, that's fantastic. It seems to me one of the things, there are many technical things that you need to be able to be master of to be a photographer, but it does seem to me that one of the key things is to be able to create a relationship with your subject. Yeah. Is that something that you've found important in what you do?
Yes, depending on the nature of why you're photographing them. Sometimes you would photograph people at a distance. There wouldn't be actually any interaction with that individual. But when working with people, maybe in a studio setting, or if you're doing a portrait specifically, you do want to be able to work with them as much as possible. It is a two-way thing. And so even before a photo shoot, you might make sure you've spoken to them on the phone, that you even just know their voice and have chatted with them, and hopefully just broken down a few barriers, maybe just put them at ease about what's about to happen, make sure you know what they're expecting out of a photo shoot, hopefully come up with some amazing image that they were expecting or maybe weren't expecting.
What have been some of the most exciting photographs that you've taken?
Exciting for different reasons. Well, I did love working up at Government House for many years, photographing events there. It could have been royal visits or official visits, whatever it might have been. But it involved photographing the Queen when she was here many years ago, Hillary Clinton when she was here more recently. And a real honour to be able to do that and to literally be the fly on the wall watching, an event unfold. And photographing the Queen was really a remarkable sort of moment. It was definitely my most nervous 3 frame, literally took 3 frames, so this was on film, the most nervous 3 frames I've ever taken. And I'll never forget as she arrived walking down a staircase, not quite like Gloria Swanson in one of her famous films, but much more slowly with the white glove on the handrail. And I just remember her image as she came down the staircase, and it was quite magical just to be there, and as a lot of people behind the scenes were anxious about what was going on in the house that day and just taking care of the Queen, and a lot of communication that happens between people non-verbally, so we were all very quiet and waiting for Her Majesty to come down, and I photographed her with the Governor and his wife and Mr. and Mrs. Brax, Premier and Mrs. Brax at the time, and the Queen and Prince Philip, of course, who did stand behind the Queen as protocol would have it. No one else did, though. Mr. Brax didn't. He was right on her level. He wasn't going to stand behind her.
But he didn't put his hand on the back of her.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
Fantastic. And what was Hillary Clinton like?
Hillary Clinton was fascinating. From the moment she arrived, it was like watching a performance. She was exceptional. The way she even walked up the stairs to meet the Governor, David de Kretser at the time, he obviously knew her well. They had a great rapport, and then he sort of ushered her into Government House to an official event with a lot of military leaders. It was certainly the first time my camera bag has had to be sniffed by sniffer dogs. You know, the bomb squad came through before I started working. It was the first time I ever had to go through that. And again, a real honour to see an extraordinary woman who played on the world stage, political stage, with a varying degree of success, I think, we can say now, but at the time a lot of people were hoping she could have been the first female president of the USA, and I was certainly wondering about it too if I was in her presence. And she was just a very professional operator to watch. She knew everyone's first name, she shook hands, she was very warm, very congenial, and as she stood up at the lectern and spoke, I took some great shots of her speaking. Anyway.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
What have been some of the more difficult shots that you've had to take?
Difficult. I think one experience comes to mind, actually being asked to photograph a woman's funeral on a professional basis. A situation where a woman had died in her 40s and her husband wanted the funeral photograph for the children who were both there at the funeral to, I think, using photography well to sort of go through her entire life, even to having her funeral documented, I thought was a great approach. But and it was a real honour again to be there and to photograph for the family, and the children performed. I was amazed that they got up and performed. One child played the flute at her mother's funeral, and she was only young. I thought it was quite inspiring. But again, it felt a bit weird because I didn't. It felt a bit strange that I didn't know the woman herself who had died, but I still had all those emotions of feeling sad for someone who. Moved by the fact that she died at too young an age. Very so young. That was a personal challenge of an interesting kind.
It seems to me with stills photography that you are simultaneously outside of the event, watching everything, but also absolutely intimately involved in the event because you've got to be there right at the right second to get the right money shot.
From my experience working at media launches with professional photographers, we're all there and we have a way of saying hi, but no one speaks. When you're photographing an event, you're very much you have to be focused on absolutely everything that's going on in the room. You can't afford to miss anything. You can't control what's going on in front of you. You watch, you hear, you're watching the entire room. I think I grew up watching adults. Everyone else in my family talked more than me, and I was always observing what was going on, and No wonder I took up with a camera when I was young. And you're not always briefed on everything that's going to happen, but you make sure you are briefed. You have to be, and ready, and you have your equipment ready.
You've also done a lot of photography of products. Can you talk a bit about what it's like to photograph an inanimate object?
Okay, you have to invent an entire world around that inanimate object. If it's a car, if it's a bar of soap, if it's a tea towel. So you need to be able to connect that object with someone. You need to create desire of that object for someone, because no doubt photographing it because someone wants to, you're hoping someone will purchase that tea towel, car or bar of soap, and continue to do that, no doubt. So,
so what's involved with creating desire for a tea towel?
Styling is good. You make that tea towel easy to relate to. You might photograph it literally hanging on handles in a kitchen. You might create a more realistic setting and light it in a certain way, like it's the hero of the kitchen. You spotlight that tea towel hanging, on a cupboard.
So how do you make a tea towel enticing? Why?
Tricks of the trade. It's like, you know how you put, if you want the food to look hot, you put a cigarette or something behind the food, because you're going to photograph it cold.
Yeah.
You're not going to photograph it like you're about to eat it.
Yeah.
You photograph it cold, but you just make it look good. I photographed a turkey once. I had an image in New Idea magazine, the highlight of my professional career, New Idea. Of course, I'm being funny about that, as you'll know. And I photographed a turkey with the chef smiling right behind his turkey, and I saw how he prepared it. It was in the kitchen. He had literally just prepared the surface of the turkey. It wasn't cooked or anything. It looked amazing. It was a Christmas story, and it ran in New Idea with text that said, you know, you've got to come and eat this turkey, and really, you wouldn't want to have eaten that turkey, but then, you know, the styling. There's colour. There's the way you light something, ways you would present it, so it just absolutely captures your imagination. You must eat it. You must have it. You must buy it.
What took you into documentary making?
Okay, so it was about year 2000. Friend and myself started a marching group. We wanted to go in the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras Parade. We wanted to start a group that was about women in our community who identified as whatever was okay by us. We just wanted to be a group of women. And my friend Robin's a choreographer. She put together this great routine. Fantastic. We got a friend who's a costume maker. I'm the organiser. We got together, we went in the Mardi Gras Parade, and we actually won an award for the best capital city interstate group for that year.
Fantastic.
But the experience for all the women in this group was more than what I was expecting. We did it for personal reasons, political reasons, have fun reasons. One night at the end of the parade, a woman who'd always just spoken quietly, quite shy, happens to be identified as being a trans person, let us know, was open about that, but still sort of stood back a bit during training, was a bit shy. But once she'd got to the end of marching up Oxford Street, and we're dismantling our float and just unwinding, she said, quite tearfully, she said, "This is the best thing I have ever done." And I went, wow, and I had to know why. I wanted to find out. So look, you know, the parade can be seen as just a big superficial party, bare bottoms and whatever on telly at night, but underneath, you know, there are a lot of real people who lead real lives, and for whom that experience means a lot. You know, getting out on the road, not just being in the stand watching. That saying, get out on the road and participate, and it will have some sort of effect on your life, and it will transform lives. Really, being able to participate in a community event like that was outrageous, it was personal, and I think it transformed lives. So look, I made a documentary, Melbourne Marching Girls Bear All, and it went into the Melbourne Queer Film Festival, won Best Doco because all the marching girls went and they all voted for it. So that was good. And look, it was a project to learn how to make a documentary.
Yep.
You know, the learn by doing. I'm very good at the learn by doing way of moving forward in life. And I learnt a lot, and I just had to I didn't know what it would cost. I just had to figure out, I was just going to pay for it and make it work. But it also screened overseas. It went to Paris and a whole range of festivals, and some lovely things happened. I wanted to use a track, Absolutely Everybody. It was the theme music that year at Mardi Gras, so I found a way to contact Mark Holden. And I wrote a letter and said, you know, this is what I'm up to, this is what I've made. It's about community. It's guaranteed to never make a cent, but could you let me use your song for free? Thanks. And I went, I have no idea what he'll say, but he contacted me and he said, yes, that's fine. And I fell over backwards. I just thought that's incredibly generous of him. And in fact, the film did make $400. It didn't make nothing. It did win that prize at Melbourne Queer Film Festival, and it won $400, which really went to the bar for the marching girls to have a drink. Because, you know, bad community. So that's where I started with my Sony PD-150, a revolutionary camera. There was some great I did my research, there's some great docos that I admired made by people with this camera. And it made a big difference for me. It was affordable, it's quite portable. It was, for me as a photographer, I could figure out how to make moving pictures work, which, you know, what I had to do technically, and so that was a life-changing, career-changing moment. It's good.
And now you've had another career-changing moment, and you've started to work on an independent feature film.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so after the making docos, I wanted to venture further, be further challenged, and make a maybe you could say a more serious, proper film versus you know, a community-based doco. So I just contacted friends to see who would be interested, and also I think because there are, you know, women of my age are not as represented as we're a bit underrepresented really, and probably gay and lesbian people, GLBTI people generally. So we decided to make a film that was more about us, that we could write and share something of our lives, and was more about us. So
what was the experience like in terms of you as DOP? How was it? What were the challenges involved in becoming a DOP overnight?
The challenges, well, I think working from equipment, there's new equipment that I got to learn pretty quickly. I needed to learn pretty quickly. I wanted to shoot in 4K, so I wanted to really shoot in the best resolution, the best way I could, given being at a certain sort of financial level about the cameras that I have. A friend wrote the script, and another friend is the lead actor and found actors. I think from the beginning it was like a big experiment that we were just going to get in and make the best film we could, and luckily we found great people to come and help and assist and advise us. The other thing for me is it was the first time I've worked with professional actors, and actors amaze me. I do want to work more with professional actors. What they do, I think, is quite magical. How they move from all the text to putting something to life was really exciting to see, even from the rehearsals we did, to see the characters come to life. Really, it's like looking back in the darkroom, making pictures and seeing your picture come to life in the developer. You know, an actor sort of did that for me, and I thought, wow, this is really powerful. So,
but one of the things I think is that filmmaking is such a collaborative exercise. Whereas working as a stills photographer, and I think also in terms of documentary making, tends to be more solitary.
Yes.
So what were the learnings for you in moving into a more collaborative environment?
Yes. Good question. The human dynamic's really important. I think I think, look, it's a matter of playing on a team, and I've been told I'm good at playing on teams. I'm still a kid on a netball team, really. And that's another reason to go into move into filmmaking, is because it requires more people and more creative people to work with, which I found really stimulating, really challenging. Working with people who knew all these other things I didn't know about. I learned I want to be on more teams. I wanted to be up for that challenge, to work with creative people and have that multidisciplinary environment. Love that. And yes, I need to give away, I need to be able to delegate and be a leader of a team myself, the photography team. So yes, at times I would run off and do something myself to fix something when I could have asked someone. Working on your own, you just don't, you can't. But yeah, it was a new experience, I think, having someone there who you could delegate to. I mean, that's just like a joy, really, to be able to do that. So, and I'm sure I'll get better. I'm sure I will, with more experience.
Tell me about the film. Where is it up to? What's it about?
Okay, well, Love Rewind has mostly been shot. I think we've got an opening scene to shoot, and as we look through the footage, I'm sure there might be some things we need to reshoot or work on. So there's probably a bit more work to do there. But basically, it's a story about a relationship where one suffers a stroke. She could have died and is nursed back to health by her partner. And it's about how in a relationship relationships go up and down around a dynamic, are always changing, and this is probably an extreme way of throwing in a big change to tell a story about how it impacted their relationship and if they stay together or not. Not too sure. I can't tell you. Not too sure what happens in the end. But we're about to start editing, and being a low budget short feature, we are of course going to count our pennies and see how much money we can now spend on it, or see where we might be able to raise funding, and just make the best film we can given certain resources. You have to keep positive about what it can be. And not get too attached to how you thought it might turn out 3 months ago, because now you're starting a new chapter as we look at editing and the story taking shape. It might not look like what we were expecting. Let's see. One
of the exciting things for me about this film is that you guys just started, you had the idea, you decided to make a feature film, and you're just doing it. And you offered your own home, so most of it was shot in your own home. So it was, for me, it's incredibly exciting that you just went, let's do it, and you're off and running.
Maybe it was crazy, it was mad. But yes, I think the three of us we were so excited that we finally had this opportunity. We've all really wanted to do this, and we just had to find the right mates to play with. And what a perfect combination we are, really, between the three of us. So we probably, in hindsight, we should have spent more time preparing. We should have.
We all learn, and this is a starting point.
Yeah. So, that probably would have been great. But then again, we just started with so much energy, and we just, and away we went. We had a schedule of getting everything shot in so many weeks. It was exhausting, it was challenging, and it was hilariously a lot of fun. And I loved it, and there's so much I will learn from and take away from it. And I would, next, obviously you've got to start the next project in a different place. But I think that just the gung-ho energy, I think that helped us just keep going because it was exhausting. We've all got jobs and all the rest. And I loved that it was in my own house. I'd love being able to do that because it works well. It's a studio space downstairs. It lent itself well, I think. I was just going to give it everything I could, and now we'll see what happens with the next steps.
It's inspirational. I found it absolutely inspirational. You guys just went, right, we're off, we've got a story and we're going to tell it. And it was wonderful to see that. So I congratulate you on that. I just thought it was brilliant.
Thank you for being there and being of assistance. Thank you very much.
Oh, pleasure. And obviously this has got you excited and you're going to continue on down this vein. So what are you doing now and what's next?
Well, I've learnt some screenwriting. You know, I've seen myself as a picture maker, not so much write it all down. You know, I haven't had great confidence in my own writing skills, but you know, I know not to believe. You know, I know not to believe everything I think. You know that great saying, "Don't believe everything you think." So I thought, well, I'll do an introduction to screenwriting course, and I have an idea, and it's just a great creative exercise to start writing it. So I'm starting a project in a completely different place because of Love Rewind, and I'd like to know what ideas I could develop and put on the screen, what characters I would write. And again, they would be women of a certain age, and two women in the main characters are, well, they're all women actually, and women in same-sex relationships, women who sort of hang out at a club where there are performers that would identify as being drag kings, non-binary. So a lot of characters who don't necessarily identify as being very mainstream, I guess. I guess they'd be this is sort of like an idea melting pot, this club that all these characters frequent. So I'm having fun designing all of them at the moment.
That's fantastic. So I think where you started in terms of the stories, because it's all about storytelling, isn't it? That's the through line. So at the start of your career, it was about telling stories through a static image. And now you're moving through to a very different style of storytelling.
Yes, it's very challenging. It's a massive, major medium of our time. I think it's like playing in a bigger ground, not just, not just playing mini golf, but we're out on a major golf course playing golf. So a great challenge, and I think I just always want to be learning things, and I just, after working on a film project at the beginning of last year and seeing a lot of female crew in major roles, director, writer, DOP, second camera was another woman at work. I think just seeing all these women at work, and it was just completely normal to them, of course, it's their work. I mean, it just made everything for me more accessible, that I could potentially tell a story as a filmmaker as well as being a still photographer. I think sometimes now still photography sometimes looks incredibly daunting and challenging too, because you're meant to be able to say however many thousand words in one picture. Sometimes that can be quite a task to quite a ladder to climb, I think. But I do love that challenge. I do love the possibility of capturing someone well in one frame. But when you've got about 50,000 frames, it is a whole other mountain to climb. Again, it's the same ideas, I guess, about telling stories about people, good stories about people that people enjoy listening to and watching.
Thank you. I think that's a great place to end. Thank you so much, Vicki. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
So I've been with Vicki Jones, photographer and storyteller. Thank you for watching.